Hey, so in this video, we're gonna be talking about, how caffeine may or may not be directly related to fat and weight loss, okay? Because I still get the question all the time, whether it be other supplements, caffeine being one of them. I heard caffeine helps with weight loss. Is this true? We're gonna break down the science, we're gonna dive into it and see whether or not that is, in fact, true. And maybe it's a secret, because there always has to be a secret. Hey, what's good YouTube? It's your boy John Mango. I'm here representing Beyond the Iron. I drop weekly fitness content on this channel to help you get to your fat loss goals quickly and more enjoyably, okay? So if that's something you're interested in, then consider subscribing below. Also, if you stay until the end of this video, I'm gonna tell you a little story about how I've used caffeine, how it's helped me, and also how it hasn't helped me, just to give you some more anecdotal and experience on my end to help you make a more informed decision of whether or not this will benefit you in the end. But before that, we're going to dive into the content. I have obviously here at my desk, I got the computer, so we're going to go through any and all studies that will relate to this topic and back up whatever it is that I'm saying in this video. And also don't forget that they will be referenced in the bottom of the description, so if you want to read further into it, by all means, check those out. This is not a video explaining to you why or what adverse effects caffeine has on you and if you should or shouldn't take it. Instead, I'm just going to lay out a few positive things that caffeine has when it comes to fat and weight loss, 4 to be specific. And then on top of that, I have 3 things listed, and again, this is based off whatever I've found, that are things to consider and potential drawbacks of using caffeine for weight loss. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and start off with number 1. The first benefit, the first pro here we're going to be talking about is hunger blunting. At least that's the term I came up with. And by the way, there's nothing in this. There's nothing in this. This is just for the thumbnail, which reminds me. So what I mean by hunger blunting is, and you've probably heard it before, that drinking black coffee can help keep you from getting hungry. It's a very popular tactic when used in intermittent fasting or any type of fasting, really. And without getting too technical, because I don't like to do that as it's usually deeper than we have to go, but caffeine actually increases the release of something called leptin. This is the hormone that essentially tells your brain and your body that you are satisfied and you don't need to eat and you won't get hungry. In other words, it also suppresses the hormone known as ghrelin, which causes hunger. Okay, so this is why it's something that's very, very beneficial as a tool in between meals. Let's say you've been flexible dieting and you're in a calorie restricted diet, as this is the main thing that's going to lead to weight or fat loss, or maybe you're intermittent fasting, whatever dieting technique you're trying out, then this could be a very valuable tool when it comes to keeping you satisfied between meals, which ultimately will increase your adherence. Now, it's important to note that this will really technically only work if it's black coffee. So the second you're adding any milk or sugar in there, you're adding calories, you're adding sugar. This causes, the hormones. Again, I don't want to get too deep into it, but the insulin spike, which it will eventually increase ghrelin quite shortly after it's consumed. So for this reason, making sure that it is black coffee, because if it isn't, you're actually taking this benefit away. All right, the second benefit is thermogenesis, okay? And if you've been following me for a while, you've heard this term quite a bit. I like to throw this one around. It's really just a fancy way of saying you are increasing the amount of energy that you're burning, okay? Well, here is the technical definition in case you happen to care. So, it's in accordance with the law of thermodynamics, and this is what causes fat loss, okay? Now, this increases it, and this can trigger it to an extent, but again, it will be completely negated if you eat back all the calories that you're burning extra. But let me talk about the caffeine. So how you increase energy expenditure is by, let's say, exercising. When you exercise, your heart rate elevates. Heart rate elevation is one of the primary drivers, if not the primary driver, to burning more calories. If I'm sitting here, I'm burning a lot less calories than if I'm walking really fast over there. That's because the heart rate has to work harder to get blood to the spots in the body that help me to get from here to there. Whereas there's not much movement in this case when I'm just sitting here. So caffeine actually also, again, kind of tricks the body by elevating the heart rate, okay? It stimulates the central nervous system, which which does actually cause your heart rate to increase slightly. It's not typically dangerous unless you have some sort of heart condition, but it is enough to slightly elevate the amount of calories you're burning throughout the day. So again, this is ultimately going to lead you to burning more calories potentially, but if you eat it all back, it's not going to matter much. Now, it's still a benefit because if you can burn more calories by essentially doing not more than just lifting your finger and drinking some coffee, then it's obviously going to facilitate, even if it's one more calorie that you've burned throughout the day, it's still going to help facilitate a caloric deficit. In other words, trigger fat loss that much better than not having it. And it's also important to note that indirectly, it just makes you feel better. So for example, before recording this video, I was actually falling asleep. I've been shortchanging my sleep, which I know is a bad idea, and I've learned this in the past, all right? Just don't worry, I'll be fine. But after I drink the coffee, I'm more alert, so I go from a state of being tired, which is common when you're in a caloric deficit, trying to lose fat, and not wanting to move as much, hence your entire metabolism starts coming down. Instead, it picks you up, again, stimulates the central nervous system, and it makes you want to move a little bit more. You're able to move. You don't have an issue or you overthink like, I gotta go get this thing, but I'm so tired, I'll just nap instead. So indirectly, that's actually increasing your metabolism even more so than you might realize, which is again, increasing the amount of calories you burn and ultimately helping you out. Now, this is why fat burners, okay, the supplements, can be marketed as such. That's because they contain caffeine, and ultimately they technically aren't lying when they say it can burn fat. But again, it may only equate to a few calories, even let's say 100 calories more a day. It's not gonna burn fat unless you're doing something else on your end. Okay, now if you want a little bit more information about supplements when it comes to fat loss, then you can check out my most recent video that I made on that right here and go into more depth about that. All right, the third point, the third benefit is going to be improved performance. Now again, this is actually going to tie into essentially the last point where the central nervous system is firing up. So when it comes to lifting weights, you can actually lift more weights. You will actually perform at a supraphysiological level, which essentially means higher than what your body can naturally achieve. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that caffeine is a steroid by any means, but it literally does allow you to perform higher than whatever state you are currently in just because of that stimulation. Improved performance, lifting more weights, doing more cardio, having more energy to do all that is going to ultimately lead to burning more calories. You get the pattern here? All right, the fourth benefit is somewhat derived off the last two as well, and that's gonna be alertness. So indirectly increasing what's called NEAT. Indirectly increasing your NEAT means your metabolism. I've made videos on this in the past, and having a coffee a day, for example, is a great way to maybe you hit that midpoint of the day, you get real sluggish, something that's very common if you've been trying to lose fat for a while and you have been eating in a caloric deficit, then you know what? This is going to keep you moving, it's going to keep you motivated. It's actually been shown to improve your mood because of all this, right? So improving your mood, higher chance of sticking to your diet, higher chance of not making as many mistakes. The less mistakes you make on the diet end of things, plus the performance and the metabolism boost on the other end of things, really you could see that caffeine does have a pretty big benefit when it comes to losing fat or losing weight. Now, it's also important to keep in mind though, this alertness could take the opposite effect afterwards. If you drink a little bit too much coffee, then it could lead to the crash, okay? Or again, if you're adding calories into the coffee, it will kind of negate this, as that alertness will be amplified but for a shorter period of time due to the sugar in there, and that's going to lead to you feeling more lethargic. That's going to lead to you feeling a lot less alert throughout the day, and to which point you're probably going to keep sipping on coffee, but this will lead to a host of other issues which will impact negatively your fat loss. So let's go ahead and talk about those real quick. So the first thing, let's talk about dependence, okay? So if you start drinking too much of this stuff, as it is a drug and it is addictive, but again, this isn't about whether or not you should or shouldn't drink coffee. It's literally just statement of the facts, and you come to the conclusions that you need to. But remember, if you start drinking a little bit too much, because it does make you feel good, it does make you more alert, as you eat less calories, it will keep you up as if you're eating more. Then it's important to note that you can get dependent, and the second you start consuming 300-400 milligrams of caffeine a day or more, then you're really putting your body at risk. The immune system is going to be dropping when you don't have the caffeine, hence only building the tolerance more, hence causing you to drink more, and it's just a vicious cycle that will eventually lead to probably sickness, sleep deprivation, or a combination of a ton of other things. So that will obviously negatively impact your weight loss. So the key point there is obviously moderation, but I feel like you saw that one coming. Now, I actually mentioned it slightly, but the next con is that it's going to negatively affect your sleep if you take it too late. Another study I'm going to link below shows that caffeine could actually stay into the system anywhere from 6 to 8 hours after you've consumed it. So I always make sure to try to have my caffeine at around 12 p.m. I'll go to sleep at 9, 10 p.m. So 12 to 1 is the last time I'll have the caffeine, just to make sure that it is cleared out of my system by the time I go to sleep. If you're having a pre-workout or a caffeine or a fat burner or whatever right before your workout, which happens to be at nighttime, only a couple hours before you go to sleep, then that's obviously going to negatively impact your recovery. And as we should know by now, recovery is the name of the game. Even if it's building muscle you're trying to do, even if it's fat loss, okay, recovery is everything. Sleep quality is important, especially as those calories come down for adherence purposes and for just feeling good as you go throughout your fat loss phase. And the third negative, the third con, is that it's not magic. I know. You waited this whole video just to come to this one point, and you found out that it is not the key to your fat loss. Well, what can I say? I apologize for dragging you along. I haven't been totally honest with you. Caffeine will not directly cause fat loss. As a matter of fact, nothing besides eating less calories than you burn will cause fat loss, or burning more calories than you eat, whichever way you want to look at it. Diet or exercise, up to you. You decide. Click here and find out which one. But the truth of the matter is, there simply is no magical formula, and caffeine is no exception. It may help when used correctly, moderately, and appropriately when it comes to your lifestyle and all that good stuff. Then you know what, it can be an amazing tool, but at the end of the day, it's always just a tool. It is nothing to rely on. It's nothing that's going to get you to your goals faster unless used accordingly, according to the facts that I laid out here. So with that kept in mind, remember, you always have to stay in a caloric deficit. If you want more information about that, I got countless videos on the channel going through it. I apologize that I had to be the bearer of bad news. But then again, I'm not sorry, because I'm kind of used to it at this point. Now, just to finish out this video, I'll go ahead and talk about my personal experience. I like to cycle off of caffeine, and typically I'll go on caffeine for 1 to 3 months of the entire year. I'm cycling off for about 9 to 10 months typically. And the reason for that is because I do take it a little bit too far myself, and luckily I catch myself in that. Sometimes it's too late and I'll get sick or I'll get sleep deprivation, like what happened to me somewhat recently, and it makes me realize that I do have to tone it back. But I definitely recommend that if you are sensitive to caffeine, that cycling off is a great idea, and always cycling off for more time than you're on. This gives your body time to recover. It will help make sure that you don't get something like adrenal fatigue just from constantly stimulating or overstimulating the nervous system. It's going to allow you to get better quality sleep. So that's personally what I do. I'm currently on just a coffee a day, but anything like a pre-workout or going essentially over 150 to 200 milligrams, I definitely avoid that. The coffees I'll just have whenever I feel like I need it throughout the period of which I'm cycling off. And I've really built massive tolerances to caffeine in the past. I've gotten to the point where I'm consuming 500-600 milligrams a day, and that's just for general health purposes. And trust me, you will start feeling it. Not to mention, the biggest thing for me, dependence is the biggest thing for me. I actually got to the point where I almost couldn't work out without it. If I didn't have it, I had to do whatever it takes to find caffeine before I work out. If not, there's no point in me working out. And I literally looked like I was a caffeine, like a fiend, right? Like a drug fiend. And I guess I kind of was then I look back at it. But that's definitely something you want to avoid. Just all the cons that I mentioned is something to keep in mind, as you could fall into that pattern without really realizing it. So I take this with kind of like a disclaimer saying that yes, caffeine could be a very, very good tool, but always ensure that you are keeping it in your head as a tool. Don't get attached to it. Don't get dependent on it. Dependence on anything, especially a drug, is never a good thing when it comes to your fat loss and overall health, okay? Because at the end of the day, why are you trying to lose fat? Typically to improve your health, okay? So that's gonna be it on caffeine. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you stayed until this point, I appreciate you so much for watching. Go ahead and check out the rest of the content on the channel, and please leave a comment below on anything you specifically would like to see, because I'm interested in knowing, and I definitely love to make it for you. So thanks for watching again. Don't forget to like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm bringing more content here whether you subscribe or not, so don't miss out, and I'll see you guys in that next video. Thanks again. I'm out.